Every summer, thousands of people enjoy the warm weather with a camping excursion. Many campers like to bring their furry family members along, which can present some challenges. Peyton Taylor, Regional Director of the Thousand Islands region for New York State Parks, has some guidelines and tips for campers looking to bring their dog with them.
When you bring your dog to a New York State Park, especially if you're going to be in a camping situation, it's important to consider safety and courtesy when you come to camp, right? So it's not just protecting the dog from other people, it's protecting other people from your dog. It's protecting your dog from the environmental hazards that they may encounter when they're in a park. So we have regulations that leashes are required in parks, and that would be the first thing that we say that we encourage people to do is make sure your dog is leashed.
For campers like Ron Powell, keeping his dog Maddie on a leash while at camp is a no-brainer.
Well, she's always either on a lead or on a leash. I know some campers think that they have total control over their dogs and they can let them off leash, but I found that they don't always. Some people think they do, but they don't. And it makes me nervous when other dogs are running loose because you never know what they might do. So to keep her away from other dogs and to have control over her, I always have her on a leash.
Keeping your dog on a leash is not only best practiced while at camp, but also while walking around camp and on trails. Doing so not only protects your dog from wildlife and environmental hazards, it's protection for dog owners and their fellow campers.
Dogs can experience a lot of hazards when they're in the park, and the leash helps protect them. So for instance, if you are out hiking on a trail and you let your dog off leash, we frequently find people coming back at the end of the day. They're exhausted, they've been looking for their dog for hours, now they have to go home and leave their dog in the woods alone overnight. It happens. So another thing is to stay on the marked trails. When dogs go off into the underbrush, they're far more likely to pick up ticks and other things, have encounters with other types of wildlife that they might not want to run into. And then when you come back from a hike, always check your dog thoroughly for ticks, because even with a good tick preventative, that doesn't stop a tick from crawling up on your dog.
Checking your dog for ticks after returning from a hike is good practice, even with a preventative, because ticks can essentially hitch a ride back to camp on your dog and potentially bite you or your fellow campers. Taylor also suggests planning before you come to camp and preparedness for the unexpected.
I feel like one thing that would help people have a better experience with their dogs in parks, and a lot of it has to do with planning before you go. Is your dog well socialized to be around other dogs? Are they familiar with being around other people? Are they familiar with being around kids? These are things, if your dog is not used to those things, we recommend that you definitely do some trial runs and get your dog socialized before you bring them into a busy campground. When you come into a state park, there's lots of things that can happen that are unexpected, uncontrolled situations. People at the next site over may have fireworks. If your dog is nervous about that, you have to be prepared for that. One thing I would say is dogs pick up our energy, and so if you're nervous, it's more likely your dog is going to be nervous. And so try to stay calm, stay relaxed, try to project that relaxed atmosphere onto your dog, and that'll help keep them calm. Be ready, make sure they're on a leash, because we have a lot of dogs, when they hear fireworks, they just take off, and they're gone. And it's sad. And that's a good way to ruin a vacation, is to spend the next couple of days looking for your dog.
Campers like Miranda Maripes are an excellent example of being prepared for what can happen at camp with your dog.
He is a black lab and Eskimo Spitz, and we make sure we tie his leash or harness up to something so he doesn't go too far. At night it's a little different because he likes to chase things we can't see, so we got to keep him a little entangled, but during the day he's usually fine, he's calm, collected, and it usually takes a stimulant to get him away from the campsite. So he's got medicine. He's got tick and flea medicine, lasts about like 3 months at a time. So we do it well before we come here to make sure he's good and when he's on the trip.
In addition, Taylor also recommends knowing your dog before you go camping.
Well, I would just say the whole, the adage, know before you go, right? If you're going to bring your dog, remember, especially if it's summertime, they're wearing a fur coat. Know before you go. Know the conditions if you're going to go for a hike. What's the terrain like? Is it level? Is it hilly? what's the temperature outside, what are the weather conditions calling for, and constantly be watching your dog because dogs can easily get overheated in the summer. And know your dog's capabilities too, because sometimes people, the idea is like, I want to take, you know, Daisy camping. You know, let's take Daisy, but it might not be Daisy's thing. So know your dog and be ready to admit maybe your dog isn't a camper. Not all dogs are. So that also causes problems sometimes because the dog is just triggered constantly. So just know before you go.
For WPBS Weekly, I'm Eric Cleary.